The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back, talking a little ball in the zone. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I have with me two of my favorite humans, Ronnie Rabinovitz and David Hubler. Start with you, Ronnie. Hello.
Hi, Ralph. How are you?
Nice to hear your dulcet tones.
Everything is good here in Minneapolis.
I'm glad. Minnesota, to your liking.
Nice and toasty.
Summer is better than winter.
We had no spring. Went right from winter to summer. And
wow.
Today's going to be 94 degrees.
Wow, that's hotter than it is here.
It's hot. It's been hot every day. 95
Ronnie,
yesterday.
if it gets to 96, sell.
Yeah, right. I will.
George Case here.
Hey, George.
Hey, George, welcome. We're taking it on the fly, and we're on the air. George Case joins David Hubler, Ronnie Rabinovitz. You know what we're going to talk today, George? We're going to talk baseball movies. Now,
baseball movies.
Yep.
Yeah, movies
right.
that you like, movies that you don't like. So let's go around the horn. I may have a surprise guest for us. So while you guys are talking movies, I'm going to start with Ronnie and then go to David and then George, and may have a guest. So have at it, guys. Your favorite movies that you don't like so much for whatever reason. So talk away.
Okay.
Ronnie Rabinovitz.
All right. Ralph, on my idea, Field of Dreams is phenomenal. I love that. And, of course, 42 I loved.
I figured that would be up there.
You figured that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even have to ask him that one.
Right.
The only sad part about 42 was they had to keep it PG-13. So all the abuse that you saw in the movie was 100 times worse than that. So, which I knew, and that made me sad. But other than that, I thought it was a good movie. I thought they did. And Rachel, God bless her, she actually put her stamp of approval on the movie. So it was pretty accurate. I'd say those two are my favorite.
What about your unfavorites? Least favorite?
Oh boy, I don't know if I have any that are unfavorite when it comes to baseball movies. I like them all, but some better than others.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like Field of Dreams too. It gets a little soppy for me toward the end, you know. But I really did enjoy it. What I find was, you know, as a writer, as an author, I sort of object to the fact that the film has superseded the book. People don't remember the book, or Kinsella, the author of the book. They remember Kevin Costner in the role, and so I mean I enjoyed it. The other one that I do like is Bull Durham. I think that really captured the flavor of what I believe is the essence of minor league baseball, and of course the fact that they used a real team. One of the things I object to about baseball movies, including what's the name of it? The one with it's based on the short story and it's the bat.
You're talking about Fear Strikes Out?
No.
Because that's one of my least favorites, so I'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Okay, but the one this is I just don't like. I don't like books about fictional teams, and I don't like films that depict fictional teams. This is Robert Redford in
The Natural.
The Natural. Thank you.
The Natural.
Yeah, I just found that it just doesn't ring true to me because there's no such a team, there's no such a league.
Right.
The other one that was sort of really good, but again it was phony, was Bang the Drum Slowly. With De Niro, and it was a wonderful movie, really terrific. And so in that one, I really sort of suspended disbelief, and really enjoyed the story. Partially because I knew the author a bit, Mark Harris, who wrote the book, and I thought they did a pretty credible job of going to the film. My least favorite film of all time is not William Bendix playing Babe Ruth, although that was kind of funny when you look back at it. The least favorite was the John Goodman version of The Babe.
Yes.
Which I could have bought it right up to the end, where he hits consecutive home runs, and the poor guy is so old and enfeebled that he can only run to first, and they put in a pinch runner for him every time. Now, that is one of the cardinal rules of baseball. Once you're out, you're out, even for Babe Ruth. But in this stupid film, probably written by a couple of people who had never been to a baseball game, every time he gets to first base, there's a pinch runner who runs the bases for him. And one of the characteristics of Ruth, of course, was his little pigeon-toed trot around the bases.
Right.
He did hit 3 home runs his last game with the Boston Braves, but this super silly nonsense about it just ruined it. I said, that's the world's worst. There's nothing worse than that movie. And that's my best and worst.
I'll tell you,
David, I'd like to jump in here because, David, I wanted to,
sure.
And Ronnie, I wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I agree with you about the Babe Ruth films. I think they're ridiculous. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. And, I'm for baseball movies that are realistic. And I do not like Hollywood touches. The fact is that Robert Redford, The Natural, was a very good film. But like you're saying, it was fictitious. And I have yet to ever attend a ball game when a ball has been hit into the exploding lights.
Yes.
And, it's a Hollywood touch. I mean, I don't like it. The fact is that I have always liked Kevin Costner movies, the 3 of them that he's in for baseball, because he played baseball. And for me, I like to watch a movie with somebody who knows what the heck they're doing as far as being a ball player.
Right, right.
And that's why I like his movies. Now, one I mentioned earlier that I absolutely detested was the fact, because I knew Jimmy Pearsall was Fear Strikes Out.
Oh, yeah.
And they have Anthony Perkins, who probably never picked up a baseball in his life, playing Jimmy Pearsall. It was a wonderful true story about the problems that Pearsall had mentally, but to portray Anthony Perkins, a wonderful actor, as Jimmy Pearsall, an outstanding Major League Baseball player, was just ludicrous to me.
Yeah, I agree. I remember that movie too. Yeah, I
agree too.
It was ridiculous. There were several of them that were kind of really dumb. But the ones from the 1950s, the original Babe Ruth with William Bendix, and the Grover Cleveland Alexander with Ronald Reagan, and films like that. I mean, they were meant to be uplifting, and there were no real biopics in those days. It was all biofiction, and that's how they made these movies.
Right.
So I don't hold that against them. The other one that I thought was not too bad was there were 2, Angels in the Outfield, which used the L.A. Angels as the team, and the other one was about the Cleveland Indians, which had a pretty good cast of minor league ball players, so they looked like they knew what they were doing.
It's called Major League.
Yeah, Major League.
Major League, right.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad.
You know, another one I liked that was it was fun, it was fictitious, but was Damn Yankees. I mean,
oh yeah,
of
course.
I love the music, and I love the music. Obviously, it was really fictitious, but it was fun.
You know, I remember seeing that on Broadway before they made the movie, and I sort of, the audience literally gasped at a couple of points in the movie. The actors who portrayed like Yogi Berra and people, they looked just like them. And the other moment came when he sells his soul to the devil, and he's singing "Goodbye, Babe," and he's sitting at the desk, and you see the actor sitting there, and he's singing, and when he gets up, it's the young guy. And to this day, I don't know how they did it. I mean, this was live on Broadway, not in the film, you know. Yeah,
okay.
It was and there was a big gasp. Amazing trick. I don't know how they did it, but that was a fun film too.
It was fun. Yeah.
Well, Damn Yankees was a really well done film as far as Washington baseball fans. I mean, I'm sure they loved it, and based upon the story, the year the Yankees lost the pennant and Joe Hardy and all the Washington stuff, and I think I'd mentioned on a podcast we had before. A couple things. One, Mickey Vernon and Chuck Dresson, they were with Washington at the time, and I have a photograph of Mickey and Chuck backstage with Gwen Verdon on the Broadway stage, which was very interesting. And then that summer, they went into summer stock in Lambertville, New Jersey, at what's called the Music Circus, and the producer had a summer show called Damn Yankees and invited my dad and myself, and we're sitting in the front row, and the producer, St. John Terrell, gets up and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet a real-life Washington senator." My dad has to get up in the middle of the stage, and Lola comes up and puts her arm around him, and a photograph gets in the newspaper. Next day, my mother is berserk. She says, "George, how could you do that with your son there?" And it was just really funny because it really happened, and my dad was he said, "Oh, come on, Helen, it was just a photograph." But I always remembered that because I was there and I saw it. So
the son would have loved to have it.
I think that beats my story. Did you find out? Did you watch to see how they made the transition in that scene, or was it so taken?
David, it was really great because I just enjoyed it because, like you said, I mean, the music was wonderful. I really liked some of the songs. So
I still love the songs. I do.
Right.
Oh yeah, and they're so well done, and I'm sure I've never read the book, but it's such a departure. As a Yankee fan, it's one of the books I've banned, like they used to ban books in Boston,
Hey, David, they've won enough. You got to give, I was doing some research. I was doing research yesterday. I mean, it was 85 years ago when Washington won their last American League pennant.
I know. I know. Well, they're much better these days, and I root for them too. There seems to be something missing there in terms of the killer instinct about going out and beating the teams. The Yankees always had that under Stengel, at least. I mean, they went out, they murdered the bad teams, and they managed to beat all the other good teams that were around. But getting back to, I don't know if the book actually had a character in it like Lola. I know that the devil was in it, and Ray Walston played the devil on the Broadway.
He was good.
He was wonderful.
He was excellent. He was.
Yeah.
Very good.
He was in the film too, if I recall.
Yeah, I think he was. Right. Mm-hmm. And they had, I think it was Tab Hunter was playing Joe.
Yeah, that's right.
In the film.
That's
right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm. It was some fun movie.
Any other bad movies you can think of? I just watched talk about movies about Babe Ruth. HBO has an hour-long documentary about Ruth with wonderful old footage and things, and it really leaves you with a lump in your throat at the end of this movie when the old guy is dying, and it's all original. Nothing has been staged or anything like that. And they have a bunch of old timers talking. This documentary was made in the 90s. So Tommy Henrik was one of the people that, one of the talking heads. And he, as far as I could tell, I know he came up around 37, and I think he missed Ruth by 1 year, but he certainly knew him. And so he had some wonderful stories about Babe Ruth, and so did a couple of other former teammates. But it's just a wonderful documentary. It's on, like you can get it on HBO Go if you have HBO. on your computer. It's really
David, when you're mentioning Babe Ruth, it's hard to believe because of the advances in medical science and stuff. But when he died of throat cancer, he was a young man. He was only 53 years old.
Yeah.
And when you look at the footage, I mean, he looks ancient.
Yes.
But, his body was so ravaged by cancer. Mm-hmm. But when you think about it, I mean, at 53 years of age, he wasn't that far away from when he was actually playing. Another, whatever it was, 10 years, 11 years when he was playing, and here he is in 19, when he died being 53 years of age, the same, as Lou Gehrig. When you look at Lou Gehrig, and that brings up another film, Pride of the Yankees. I mean, I really enjoyed the film, but I didn't particularly enjoy the Hollywood touches. But on the other hand, Lou Gehrig was a young man when he was struck down. So, I mean, when you look at those two great superstars,
how old was Lou when he died?
Lou was only, I think, 41.
Yeah, I don't even know if he made it to 40, but it's.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was 1939 when they honored him, and then 2 years later he was gone.
Yeah, he died in 41. That's
right.
true. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and one of the other things that's interesting about this documentary about Babe Ruth, they have some footage. Ruth was willing to do anything, and I don't think it was all for money. But he actually appeared in a couple of feature films starring Babe Ruth. And they had him playing like detectives and all sorts of strange characters. So there's some footage of those roles. He was a much better ball player than an actor. I'll put it that way.
I've seen some footage, David and Ronnie. I've seen some footage of Lou Gehrig. He played Tarzan or something in a movie, and he was dressed in a some kind of cloth, and I mean with a thing in his hand. I mean, it was really crazy. And then I also saw some clips, and I agree, David. Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, great ball players, but certainly not very good
terrible actors.
No, I think they just tried to cash in on their fame.
Oh, absolutely, right.
And of course there was no real TV for when either one of them was alive. So So they had to use the movies as a way to sort of boost in.
Hey guys, it's Ralph. I'm interjecting something. I think we had Michael Dante on a while back. Do you remember, George?
Yes,
I do.
This was the show. He was a former bonus baby. I think it was with the Braves initially. And he went on to a pretty fine acting career. So there.
Oh, I remember. Yes. Mm-hmm.
He gave an extended interview. He was quite verbose in his recalling his career.
You don't.
Quite modest, I might add. Too. Mm-hmm. He held back on some of the things that he could have said about himself, if I recall. Great interview. But the Rifleman was another guy. I don't know if you mentioned him.
Chuck Connors.
Chuck Connors.
Yeah. Oh, George, he was 37. I just looked it up. He was
37, was he? Okay.
Yeah.
Who's that, Lou Gehrig?
Lou Gehrig. He was just a couple of weeks shy of his 38th birthday.
Now, there is
a week.
There's a book out now, recently published, written by Tony Castro, who I had on and interviewed. Gehrig's life was not, the ALC notwithstanding, there was a lot of turmoil. His mother was a strange breed of cat and raised him in such a way that it almost made it impossible for him to establish intimacy with anyone. And even after death, There was great infighting in the family for what was left of what was never a real big estate. The Gehrigs, compared to Ruth, what he made was very, very minimal. And as a matter of fact, Joe DiMaggio said when he was holding out and the owners said, listen, Lou Gehrig is making $35,000 a year. DiMaggio said, yeah, and he's underpaid too. That's the problem. Don't compare me to him. Compare me to what Babe Ruth used to be paid. So, a very interesting book. Tony Castro wrote it. Gehrig and Ruth. A lot of misconceptions cleared up.
What's the name of it?
Gehrig and Ruth.
Oh, Gehrig and Ruth.
By Tony Castro, the author.
Well, if I can step in here a second, I know there was a lot of friction between, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig toward the end that was resolved. I think it dated back when Mrs. Lou's wife had mentioned something about, the way Babe Ruth was dressing his daughter or something, and that caused the problem. And then, of course, they resolved that at the end on Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day. Babe came over and put his arm around him, and they talked, and they, rekindled their friendship. But it was also a fact, and I haven't read Tony's book, but Lou Gehrig was a so-called mama's boy. I mean, he loved his mother, and that did create a little bit of friction between Eleanor Gehrig, Lou's wife, and his mother, and so that was a fact. Lou was brought up in a German family, and his parents, my understanding, they really wanted him to be an engineer. When he attended Columbia, they didn't know anything about baseball. And, Lou had decided that his career path was going to be in baseball because of his great ability. But a lot of those things that I'm sure that Tony pointed out in the book are factual. And Lou Gehrig did, as great a player as he was, he did take second stage to Babe Ruth because Babe got all the publicity. Lou was probably just as an accomplished ball player, but Babe, because of his lifestyle and being so flamboyant and doing all the stuff he did, Lou was very quiet, reserved, and the limelight was always on Babe Ruth.
Absolutely. What a nice show. This was beautiful. We got to hear less of me and more of you guys. So, anything left hanging? Because I've been producing and no one's called. So, anything?
You mean to complain? To complain?
Pardon?
I said no one's called to complain.
Well, I didn't say that. The calls I head those off, by the way.
One film, we were talking about films, baseball films, one that we didn't discuss, at least I didn't hear us discuss it, and one of my favorites was Moneyball. And I particularly liked Moneyball because of the baseball scenes. To me, they were realistic. And Ralph, they were filmed right across the street from you in the Oakland, Coliseum. But the fact is that the scene that I really enjoyed was with Brad Pitt and the baseball scouts. I thought it was extremely well done. The casting was perfect. The language, it was great. And my dad was a scout, and I, at times, and I knew a lot of scouts, and I knew that's how they talked. And there is a certain amount of divergence of opinion in baseball today when you have sabermetrics and you have all the looking at the players statistically versus what the scouts are looking for in players. And I really thought that scene, particularly that scene in Moneyball, was very well done.
I will say my major criticism was the way Art Howe was portrayed. Billy Bean in real life and Art Howe in real life had a tremendously tumultuous relationship. And Billy Bean had a heavy hand in the producing of the movie, and he got to portray Art Howe in a very, very negative light, and that part wasn't fair.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah. The other film that we all forgot was one of my favorites was 61. And
absolutely. So well done.
Right.
Absolutely.
The uniforms, the batting helmets,
everything.
The Yankees had a very...
And they looked like the players themselves. I mean,
yes, they did.
The actor who played Roger Maris was like a double. And what also was terrific about that movie were the special effects. I mean, the whole thing was filmed in Briggs Stadium, I understand.
Yeah, they used Briggs Stadium for Yankee Stadium. They did a wonderful job in recreating that, David. You're absolutely right.
And the crowd, they actually created a graphic of crowds. They had maybe 25 people in one sort of corner, and those were the real ones in the rest of the stadium. It was just a terrific film.
That was a very good movie. It was.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of Billy Crystal, but I thought he did a terrific job with that film. Yeah.
Well, Billy Crystal was a great Yankees fan, and I mean that was the thing. Yeah. He wanted to try to make it as realistic as he could, and I think he did a good job. I mean, we all know Billy Crystal as a tremendously talented, comedian, actor, and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But he was. I've seen photographs of Billy. I mean, he loved the Yankees, and that was his project to do 61 on that season.
He epitomizes what any real baseball fan who follows a particular team, whatever the team is, who would be like hired to make a movie about that team, would want realism, wouldn't want any, phoniness about it, would insist on everything looking real and playing out real. So he did the job.
To the extent where the apartment in Queens that they showed, I don't know if it was a set or what. That is so typical of a Queens apartment that Bob Cerv, Maris, and Mantle lived in during the season. Talk of their not getting along was really out of place. Those guys, everything considered, Maris and Mantle did very well together, and the amount of
I think so. They might have actually used the Queens apartment because they always have these scouts who go out before the film is made in location and find appropriate spots to film, and whoever lives there gets a fairly nice payday for vacating the house.
Right.
So that's probably what happened.
Yeah, good movie. How about my favorite movie, Major League? It was about the Cleveland Indians and their rise. Had a little love thing going with a large woman. I can't think of her name. Not large. Fairly tall.
Chunky doodle.
Zoptic, kind of voluptuous. Right. I don't know what you want
Chunky
to call
doodle.
Pardon me?
That was a very funny movie. I mean, as we talked earlier, I mean, baseball movies that are not realistic, I don't really like, and of course that wasn't realistic as far as all the comedy. But on the other hand, the Cleveland players, they were in the uniforms and in the locker rooms and all that stuff, and I just thought it was really funny. I enjoyed it too.
Yeah,
one thing about
was cute, and him coming out for. For the tryout, and they moved his bed out to the street or whatever. It was a good movie. I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. One thing that this discussion...
One of my favorite books of all times was Bang, and it was a trilogy, actually.
Bang the Drum Slowly. Yeah, we did talk about that, yeah.
Mark
Harris's book. Mm-hmm.
Mark Harris, but the movie itself, I thought was poorly portrayed. But
really,
Oh, I do. I thought I thought the ball players didn't do well as ball players. They could have, just wasn't realistic on the field.
I don't remember that much, but I did want to just make one comment about this whole discussion, which proves to me I don't believe we could spend as much time discussing good and bad football movies or good and bad basketball movies as we can do spending time on baseball movies.
There is really nothing like I mean, I look at winter sport, they're filler sports until spring.
They were, right? Yes.
As much as we love the memories and as much as, because that's all we had, they were indoor sports. We were living in freezing cold New York in the winter time. It was competition. It was getting out of the house. It was all those appreciation of athletic ability, but it wasn't baseball. It wasn't just going to a game and sitting there and not worrying about the clock. When the game is over, the game is over. And I don't know where that was lost, where it boggles my mind.
Yeah, the age of instant gratification came about.
Right.
Boy.
But I mean, there have only been a handful.
As I reach for the big
football movies, yeah.
I don't know what to say about that, but there are no football movies. I remember one in particular with Walter Matthau in Cleveland, where he played a photographer or a sideline guy, and it was a fairly decent movie about a running back in Cleveland, but not only don't I remember the name, but I don't remember the plot of the movie particularly.
And think about how many football movies have been made about individual players. Virtually none. The only ones I can think of were Rockney of Notre Dame, which is about the coach, and the one that I remember, and I can't think of the name of the movie, was about Brian's Song. Brian's
Song was I thought fairly well done.
I love that movie. I love that.
Yeah, because that was based upon a true story, and Brian Piccolo and his friendship, and it was rather heart wrenching, to tell you the truth, because again it ended when he died at a very young age.
Right. Very young.
Hey, was that the voice of Nancy that I heard?
Nancy.
Hello.
Hello.
I was trying to get in touch with Nancy Finley, daughter of Carl Finley and niece of Charlie Finley. There is in Oakland today a backpack day commemorating the rabbit in Charlie Finley's past. Remember the rabbit that came out of the ground behind home plate?
Delivered baseballs to the umpire.
Right. And,
he's the mechanic.
And I thought we'd get her on, and I called trying earlier and left a message, and I thought I heard her voice in the background, but maybe that's my imagination. No golf movies either, as I recall, except
sure, there was that one. Which one?
The one with Ben Hogan. I swear to God.
No, yeah.
He was portrayed as having polio, and I'm watching this movie, black and white set years ago, with a woman, and the reception is coming in so wavy, it looked like his legs were wavy, and we laughed about that. I mean, you don't laugh at polio generally, but we had the opportunity to do so because there's Ben Hogan and his legs are waving, and he came back from polio. God bless him. And
well, the one that I remember, which is very good, I think it was called The Perfect Game. It was about the U.S. Open champion in 1912, I think, based on a true story where this British champion comes over and this novice American who had been a caddy, and it was very well done. It was a recent movie too. It's not all that old. And he actually defeated this British champion. And although they were competitors, when it ended, the British champion had great respect for the American, who went on to have a very prominent career in golf in the States, which in the early 20s, of course, was not, it was a country club game. So, but the movie was fine. I really thought it was a terrific movie. I can't think of the name.
There was a golf movie about Babe Dickerson.
At a biopic, yeah.
Once,
and then of course there was Caddyshack.
Right.
Oh man, I miss Rodney. Rodney was one funny guy.
He was.
Funny.
Yes, he was.
He had Carson breaking up, and a lot of that stuff is still on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
yes, it is
on YouTube, and he's just a funny guy. That's the only thing you can say. There's another Rodney movie, Going Back to School.
Yes.
Oh, that was funny. That was done in Wisconsin at Madison.
Oh, really?
University of Wisconsin. Yeah, that's really funny.
Also,
one of my sugar
publicity is Caddyshack, but I thought it was even funnier to be.
It was even funnier. You're right.
Which was funnier? Going back to school.
Going back to school, I thought was funnier than Caddyshack. I thought.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, he was the real star of that movie in Caddyshack. What's his name was the lead actor. I can't think of it.
He's funny.
But he was funny. But he wasn't, the main protagonist the way he was in that.
When he was in that country club and grabbed that woman. Oh my God.
Yes.
I just died.
Funny stuff.
So funny.
So probably there are more movies about horse races than there have been about golf and basketball.
Right.
When you
there
think
haven't been
about
many for basketball, have there?
No. The Hoosiers was one.
Yeah, Hoosiers was pretty good. Gene Hackman, and they filmed at I think at one of the colleges, and they did a good job. They had some actors who were pretty good basketball players, and the same thing with a ice hockey movie, Miracle, that I thought they did a good job.
Oh yeah,
on that.
They did a very good job.
Herb Brooks. Kurt Russell played Herb Brooks, and I thought he did a good job because, again, they used actors who had skating ability. And in basketball, they used actors that had basketball ability. So, I mean, for me, as we've talked earlier, I really enjoy sports movies, baseball, whatever it is, that are realistic. I do not like fictional portrayals of somebody. That the one thing, for instance, prime example for me, a great movie, a terrific story, Pride of the Yankees. Well, Pride of the Yankees, a wonderful story about Lou Gehrig, but Gary Cooper, who's right-handed, is playing the left-handed Lou Gehrig, and LA's Wrigley Field is substituted for Yankee Stadium. For me, I enjoyed the movie, but I don't enjoy Hollywood touches like that are not realistic.
Well, you know what they did? They did everything backwards. They had Gehrig run to third base instead of first, so it looked like he was batting left-handed, and then the number on his back was backward. I mean, it was kind of silly, but it was soon after he died, I believe.
No, they did it. They filmed. I think it was released in '41, so it was released maybe the year that Lou died. But and it was a great movie, and I know Eleanor Gehrig, she had put her stamp of approval on. But I mean, the technology back then so different than today. But for me, my dad was on the field when Lou Gehrig gave his Luckiest Man speech. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, my dad was there. I know what it was. And here he is, Gary Cooper.
My mother was there. I told you guys this before.
Yes, you did, Ralph.
Yeah.
You certainly
did.
Yes,
you did.
And
so for me to watch that and watch Gary Cooper standing up in front of the cameras at Wrigley Field and portraying Lou Gehrig, giving his wonderful speech, I mean, it just didn't hit home to me the way it probably should have, because I knew exactly what was going on when it happened.
I just watched I, Tanya last night, talk about sports movies, about her ice skating career. And it's a very well done film, a really terrific movie. And again, the ice skating scenes are realistic. They're not just film clips of actual. The actress who portrayed her did a terrific job. Everyone in the cast did, I thought. And the way they filmed it, it's a sort of unusual. It's not sequential as you might expect, but there are several touches in there that make it well worth watching.
David, I haven't seen the movie. I've heard about it, but did they actually show, Nancy Kerrigan being clubbed, off the ice?
Yeah, but they recreated it with the actors, but and they did it in a way that my wife cringed when they hit her, but you don't really see her being hit.
Right.
But with this collapsible wand thing that they hit her with. We were sitting behind her one day at the at Braves spring training game a couple of years back, and we said a few words, said hello and stuff, and Kerrigan was very cordial and pleasant. So that's why I watched the movie.
Good. That's good. I was.
Why me? Why me?
Yeah.
I think I channeled her voice. I don't know.
I thought that was her.
Yes.
I thought that was her too.
Right?
Yeah.
It scared me. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'm still shaking a little bit. But Ronnie knows I'm a gamer and I'm going to be all right.
You'll be all right. You will be.
All right.
Absolutely. I had a fun time the other day. I was in St. Paul. They have a team called the St. Paul Saints. And they have a beautiful stadium. Mike Veck was speaking at this breakfast, and he is a character. It's Bill Veck's son.
Get him on. His dad was my hero when I was a kid.
Okay, I'll get him on. I will get him on.
Would you? Oh, wow. That would be terrific.
I'll try.
Yeah, that would be great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is so much fun.
And listen, I tell you what, if you get him on, let's try to get I'll try to get Paul Dixon on the same time, who wrote the very good best-selling book about Bill Veck that came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, what
timing.
This
Mike, they have built a beautiful, probably the finest minor league stadium in the country. It is just phenomenal. And they're filled up every single day. It's unbelievable.
That's an independent
really
team, isn't it? On the independent? That's an independent?
Yeah, it is. But it's a
Ronnie, if you were able to get Mike Veck, I would love to know when that's going to be, because as I've mentioned before, my dad played for Bill Veck at Cleveland.
Oh, sure.
And Veck, his first promotion when he took over as the owner of the Cleveland Indians was to arrange my dad's race in 1946 against Jesse Owens. So, I would love to be able to, talk with Mike because I had some personal memories of Bill Veck.
I didn't realize I didn't realize that Bill Veck arranged that race. Wow.
Yeah, he did. He that was his first promotion, and I remember my father telling me about it. He said, "Yeah, Bill came to him and said, George, I'm going to have you race Jesse Owens." And my dad said, "Bill, you're kidding." And Bill said, "No, I'm serious. I think he'll do a good job against him." So, Jesse beat my dad, but Jesse ran it in 9.9. My dad did 10 flat over the outfield grass at Cleveland Stadium. So it was a big event.
Pretty close race.
Bill promoted it. That was his first promotion.
Mike was telling about
was
this.
Was that actually a 100-yard dash?
Yes. 100-yard dash over the outfield grass, and they're wearing baseball uniforms. So, Jesse, I think in Munich ran it in like 9.4 or whatever it was, but this was 10 years later, and they were running in baseball uniforms. So the timing was a little bit slow, but my dad, gave him a good race and only lost to him by a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
Did your dad have track experience before baseball?
No, my dad never ran track, and he was a couple of people used to say to him, "Why don't you run track?" He said, "Well, I love baseball." And Hap Hardell, who was the Georgetown track coach, saw my dad run in baseball and told Shirley Povich, he said, "Well, if Case had decided he wanted to be a sprinter, he could have been an Olympic gold medalist. He was that fast."
Wow.
Oh.
Isn't that something? Mike was telling about this promotion he had in Chicago where they were burning records.
Yeah, Disco Demolition Night.
Yes, yes. I remember. Well, didn't they have 10-cent beer night as well?
Yeah. I mean, they have all these promotions. It's crazy.
And they all,
no, he did.
There were a lot of
Bill Beck. Yeah, Bill Beck had some crazy promotions, but I mean, he was a genius, and that's what he did. And so Mike learned his craft from probably the best of all time, being his father.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only that, he was a great builder of ball clubs, the 40 Indians.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't
he sure was
afraid to bring black players in.
No.
Brought up Larry Doby.
Right, he signed Doby, right. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
He came up just a few months after Robinson did, right?
Jackie, yeah. Right. That's right.
And a lot of those players on that 46 team that my dad was with the Indians, were the same players on the 48 team. So, it was Boudreau and Lemon and Feller and Jim Higgin, those guys. And, I mean, as Ralph, as you're talking about, I mean, he built a tremendous club. I mean, Bill Beck had tremendous baseball knowledge in addition to his, promotion ability. So, I mean, he was the real deal.
And he was a people's owner, probably amongst the last of them. He'd go out and sit in the bleachers. He'd take his shirt off in bleachers. He'd go out in shorts. He had a wooden leg. He wasn't afraid or embarrassed to walk with it. He built a little deal into the wooden leg. He built an ashtray in the wooden leg. So he'd be smoking a cigarette. He'd have some place to put the cigarette out in the ashtray.
It's kind of dangerous to put a flame into a wooden receptacle.
Well, I don't know if he was a forward thinker. He wasn't that forward a thinker. It's like, I don't know if I ever told you guys this. I had a great aunt who was the first demonstrator to have ever burnt her bra at a public demonstrator. And a year later, it finally hit her that she should have taken it off. But she was ahead of her time and before her time. One of those things you want to be famous. You don't want to be infamous. That
right.
If we could avoid doing that between now and next week, we'll be in good shape, gentlemen.
That's right.
All right. Tell your daughters that story. Just pass it along. I have no daughters, but no one to pass it along to. But I have all this wisdom going on. Take off the bra first. That was my great Aunt Gertie.
Before you burn it.
Before you burn it. That's it. It was and put a little salt in that chopped liver. She had two things. Take off the bra first and put a little salt in the chopped liver. I don't know where all this is coming from, but I got a knock on the door. The two guys are out there with a white coat. Okay, guys.
All right.
Enjoyed it. As always.
It's fun. It's fun.
Have a good week.
Well,
talk to you all later. Bye-bye now.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be well.